Episode 2 of The Storm Room, which is a continuation of the Seven Seas podcast. As I said, I've started writing, and I need to write because I have a lot of stories, and a lot of them have a point. And I joined this group called the Storyteller Circle through Mark Cordone Creative, and I've been doing that for about the last year. And so, how it works is they'll give you a prompt, and you have between 10 and 30 minutes, depending on how many people are there, to just write. And it's amazing what comes up when you just make the time to write. And you're accountable to other people that are expecting you to be there and give your feedback, and you're going to get their feedback, and you have this kind of a social contract with people. It's amazing what giving yourself that kind of freedom can do. And what I found is that every prompt that has come up has prompted me to talk about unfinished business. So I'm going to read you a story today. This is a story that I wrote. It's not 100% edited. I am for excellence, not perfection. That's God's business. That's what Michael J. Fox said. I love that quote. And so I'm just going to read you a story. And this is a story it's two different stories put together about growing up in my childhood. And I came from a family with some parents that were kind of stuck together and both pretty broken from how they grew up. They had pretty rough upbringings, both of them did. And just trying to make it work and take care of kids in a better way than they were taking care of, which they did. And I'm also telling this story from my point of view at the time, is like not understanding what I just explained to you. And I hope you just enjoy the honesty of that. So I'm going to share this with you. It's called Bluebird. So settle in. There's going to be nothing to watch besides me doing this. So if you're just listening on audio, you're not missing out on anything. I'll just get into the story. Long before I knew the significance of Ralphie's Red Ryder, I held a daisy in my hands. Cool, smooth, black tin clad in gray, grainy wood, and much to bear. As the beautiful device was laid in the pinch of my thin fingers, I leaned back to brace the burden as a 5-year-old boy does. My father took a grip on the barrel and slid a small door open near the muzzle, then produced from his person a palm full of shiny beads from a cardboard tube. This completed the assembly of a gift from father to son. They looked like cake decorations. I watched and listened as they showered cyclically into the hidden chamber, racing to a heavy stack inside the tube. Several fell in the spilling and bounced about my feet, tick-tick roll off the concrete stoop. We lived in the country, and this was a rare moment with my father, just he and I. My sisters were at school, and my mother in the house. My father led me to the edge of our yard, where a high wall of gray stones framed the cut of our steep driveway. This was the boundary of our grassy playland and a great place to leap into the sun. My father was a powerful man, smelling of plywood, mill glue, sweat, and cigarettes. He stopped next to me in the grass, whispering instructions into the ear of a young boy who could hear well, but unbeknownst to us all, struggled with vision. I knelt to the damp grass and heard the BBs race again. Shh! Hush warning through a single thick finger. Wet grass, wicked knee and elbow cold. His thick hands held my shoulder, bones to butt stuck, warm cheek pressed to cool wood. Now just hunker down there and line these up, thumping the front side blade, then a rear slot with some urgency. Careful now. He may fly off and we'll lose him. I listened with great focus, but my available ear could not compensate for the great clouded conundrum looming between father and son. What was he talking about? I pecked to myself while straining and pursing my eyes. Only a V-blade stamped to the dark barrel was clear enough to name. I gaped at the rumor of this front sight, then feigned understanding, wanting to know more, wanting more of the moment with my father than the bluebird he had called me to harvest. Okay now, put one in the chamber like this. Rolling on my side, the wet grass burped its dirty breath. Once more his hands met mine to release the handle loop and bend it back. Spring, ping, set the hammer. Easy, he's still there. On my belly, he pulled and placed my legs, braced my elbows with clamping vices, and dug them each deep pockets into wet dirt with a press and a press. Do you see him? He's right there. I heard his story again, culinary reckoning from his far-gone childhood, detailed with the ingredients of Grandma's piping hot robin pie, rushed the nostrils of our minds. And today yes I, would bring home dinner. A birthright pressed to the delicate crust of my father's admiration. This was my hunger. Squinting, squeezing, heart leaping to wag the barrel, I scanned desperately. No, there! A pointed finger danced at my brow, urgently bleeding frustration. My wide eyes strained for grain of feathered edges. You line 'em up. I raised my head, feeling the pinch of pressure from the fat finger that rode atop mine, increasing. Click, pop, sprung in my ear. Relief, for the finger was found in curling it twice. He's still there, you got lucky. You may get another shot, rallied his faith and frazzling son. Roll, click, ping, squeeze, pop. Sighs and smoke steam bent his mustache to curls as my mind took a walk, hunting for Easter blue somewhere in that field. Roll, click, ping, squeeze, pop. On my own now, a small win. We routed the jumping off cliff in a crouch and took up a closer position in a gravelly driveway. I was thankful for the opportunity of remedial grace. Sitting this time, elbows bent to knees as assembled. Clink, click, ping, squeeze, pop. Hop, hop. A blue bounce in my green fuzzy field. Look both ways, speaking creakily, from side breath swirling gray as he lit another cigarette. Having given up pretense of a true stock, we walked across the paved plateau of Squaw Valley Road, and the barrel lay steady in a low, rusty wire stapled with spikes. Now you got him. But after a few more pings, the dancing bird stood easy as you please, light in the sun. I could see him now all right enough, like a missing blue sneaker left in the grass. Hop, hop. Shh. The few remaining ball bearings circled the magazine, whistling about in the thin metal tube. The words, "Keep at her," sailed quietly over the road, piercing my twittering heart as my father walked away. Sighs of disappointment in my Oregon sky laid waves of warm and cool as the great puffs marched overhead. Gloom overtook gleam, pulling shade over a great closing window of time. I was getting too close to the bird and too far from home. How could I get back? I stayed low through the uneven field, closer again, and vexed with desperation. Roll, click, ping, squeeze, pop like he showed me. A fluttering, beautiful bird came to a warm, heavy rest. I scampered, pounced, and took in my hands the beautiful bird. Feathers cast from a hanging wing. Dad! 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 Leaving the rifle, I sprang to the fence, the road, the drive, calling out all the while, cradling the warm breast of pride, lolling over the soft cliff of my presenting hands. Powdery gravel, clouded dust, small shuffling feet, up, up, up the drive, around the stony cliff, the dry stump, and the last of the tall rock wall. I rounded the stoop and met my father's bright, huge face. "Attaboy!" The door cracked to my mother's short, wide frame. "Jess, what did you do?" A scolding like I'd never had. Not born of cheeky antics, but a terminal splintering by the will of my father, at extension of my hand. They, my parents, were not a team, I would learn, in the raising of their children. Her face glowed ruddy, shining high apple cheeks and waxing tears. Mouth turned down to a quivering chin. "Why did you kill it?" she screamed. I looked to my father, who turned from the tiny woman and her looming wrath. I was on my own. Mother's face now shaking. There would be no robin pie. My tears emerged of their own volition, stacking pools that tumbled over my cheeks. I had done a bad thing? How did this happen? I looked down, feeling the weight of the beautiful creature, knowing this was no longer about dinner, but tragedy. My father, seeing my tears, scoffed and walked away. My mother ordered me to dig a grave and bury the wasted bird, and so I did, in a shoebox behind the house. I wasn't very hungry, and dinner was quiet in my mind. I had somehow disappointed both my parents simultaneously. The BB gun lost its luster, and a circle of safety in my budding life had fallen from that jumping place with a snap and a ping. They never spoke of it. This was not their way. That year, it was discovered I needed glasses, and the world came into view. But my place in the pack was tenuous. 3 older sisters whirled about like tempests, and the norm was a storm. I was always behind, running to catch up, and everyone was waiting. We bounced around as the plywood mill laid off men, in the wake of fear surrounding spotted owl sustenance, and so my father searched for ours. We lost that house. Eventually, we landed in Alaska. But no matter where we lived, we spent a lot of time outdoors, mostly Dad, Sasha, and I, as usual, trying to keep up. The fall of 1990 found us running a ridge with light gear, Resurrection Bay at our backs, 2,200 feet below. We rooted on a ridge, looking northwest over a deep valley. Moose hunting season was near the end, and my father's fur fever was high. I scanned to no avail through the big binoculars mashed against heavy glasses, with a push up the bridge of a small, sweaty nose wrinkled by smoke, then handed them back to Sasha. "Oh yeah, I see him," my sister squealed. Of course she did. That's why they called her Rambo. Once she shot out the eye of a flying hawk's head while it lifted one of her prize chickens into the trees, and that rifle with no front sight. Or the time when she was 12 in Oregon and would go hunting rattlesnakes with a steel fence post. Or beat all her classmates, male and female alike, arm wrestling and crack 3 ribs doing it. My sister was ripped naturally. She could have woke from a 3-day drunk party fest, walked onto a bodybuilder's stage and taken gold. Her natural talents and physique were Olympic. So here we were again, her hawk eyes spotting our food for the winter. My cloudy Coke bottle steamed up from squinting, open mouth face, perched for a glimpse of the beast below. Yeah, well, I can start a fire with my glasses and she can't, I consoled myself. But it wasn't just the vision thing. She was the son my dad always wanted. I perched at the edge of our nest for the plan, as my father used various unnecessary sticks, rocks, and props to very unclearly demonstrate his tactical prowess. "How won't you hit me?" I chimed, with a cocked head pointing at a clear crossfire scenario, where the moss was a patch of trees and several stones converged with simulated risk action. "Shh, don't you worry, you won't be anywhere near," my old man said. We hastened down the slope like puppies falling into a 1,000-foot ditch, plowing tall grass. The plan, as it was presented, involved killing a 1,500-pound, presumably legal moose at the bottom of a 45-degree, 1,500-foot ravine just before dark. This in grizzly country. No part of said plan involved the extrication that would follow initial success. Grizzlies can run flat out up a 45-degree slope at 35 miles per hour, and I'd seen them do it. Claws, paws, and jaws, however, were not my concern at the moment. After all, I was hunting with my old man. At the root of the valley lay a slip of thin water, mucky banks of muskeg, stamped with a deep cut by fresh snowmelt's flow. It sat motionless, then dropped stair steps in trickling glass cascade, bound for ocean below. The hunt was on, and that forked horn moose had tucked into the thicket favoring shade. My Coke bottle glasses painted dribble by the dew in a tall grass, I took my assigned position as the pusher. Make as much noise as you can. Sasha and I will be waiting for him on the other side. I'll give you a signal. I had my great-grandfather's pistol in my pack. It was pearl-handled Colt, a .38 Special. He wore that beauty on his hip when he rode with the sheriff's posse down south, way back when. Wet to the waist from fording the quiet creek, I prepared myself, pistol in hand, then conjured the spirit of the loudest, most disruptive force in my young mind, Senor Speedy Gonzales. I waited there, sprung and grinning, for a guttural explosion of yepa, yepa, andule. The signal came not from the side, but from ahead, through thick alderbrush soon to be fraught with chaos. Yai-ya-ha-ha! Speedy cut loose. I squeezed the thick, cold white bone handle, double gripping and ripping. Boom, fire, boom. Riding for the brand, in a posse of one, I busted into the thicket. Then boom, boom, cannons. Thwang, boom, boom, thwang, boom, boom. Repeated ricochet filled the air. I hit the dirt, cut left, and rolled behind a root wad, rapping rocks. More firing, hollering, and urgent utterings of my familiar flock. Lips pursed and cursed, I shook my head side to side. Don't worry, you won't be anywhere near, returned to my mind's ear, between thunder fire. Hey, hey, stop! Those idiots were nowhere near where they said they'd be. So much for the plan. All I had between me and their muzzle was about 30 yards of brush and a young bull moose. I could hear him crashing and splashing in the thicket among the cannons. A long pause took hold after the ammo was spent. Then, one loud report. What the? I was still low in the moss when I heard them call my name from a shockingly close quarter. Dragging up, I holstered and wandered not enthusiastically through the brush, stomping and breaking branches. It's me! Don't shoot! I barked, approaching them warily, found them wide-eyed over the moose, indifferent to my arrival. I was right over there. What happened? Well, I didn't think you was that close, my old man said. But we got him. Yeah, we did, Sasha echoed. Where did you hit him? Well, he took off running, so we kept shooting, and he went down here. Then I put him down. I did hit him, Sasha exclaimed, standing all 4'11", swaggering her head with proud mirror's praise. Yeah! Dad stamped the air with a thick thumbs up. Sure as shooting, she had hit him. Once. Right through the left ear. A .30 caliber hole in the brown fuzzy flap held the score. Sasha 1, Moose 0. This was all postulating sleight of hand to shadow the real reason Bullwinkle bit the dust, which was the compound fracture of his right front leg. White bone splintered through the hide like a pocketful of ice picks. I considered myself lucky not to have one just like it. I felt a kindred to the moose, having danced the same play of curtain-cutting lead, and thankful for the intermission of the hillbilly blunderbuss band. And with that break, I made mine back to the Slip Creek, 20 yards of boulder hopping south, where a decent camp spot emerged. Water, wood, and a flat spot. Everything we need. The sun was setting as I returned to gray smoke signaling my dad's position in the green leafy brush. "Let's camp here. It's going to get dark soon," I heard myself say with surprising conviction. Sasha melted. "No." She was terrified of grizzly bears. I smirked, empowered. "We can all take watches." Sasha pled and trembled. "Rambo my ass." Mumbling about his last 3 cigarettes and being out of ammo, my dad made the final call to cut out. My carefully selected survival kit would not be tested that night. Practicing preparedness had been one of my rebellions. The reality that we would leave behind our prize and tuck tail over trail in favor of warm beds with nothing to show for it boiled like robin pie in my conscience. Under fading light, we skunned the creature with one of my dad's $5 knives sharpened like a lawnmower blade and my $50 Gerber Gator 650. "You still have that?" He looked yearningly at the quality blade. I'd bought the knife with odd job money, and in 1988 for $50 for a pocket knife was a lot. He called me foolish, saying I would lose it in a week because he always did. I prized the distinction on his point and enjoyed the feel of the quality as I fumbled through my part of the job, then washed the blade and stowed it. My sons would and did later carry that blade. We teamed up to carry the warm dinosaur drumsticks over the Slip Creek and onto the flat spot. This was something, at least, to get them away from the gut pile. A roosting hen-sized heart and a turkey-sized liver smelling of irony dirt were rolled into my drawstring canvas backpack. Pistol, survival gear, and sweat-soaked hat floated atop the dark pudding of cargo. Truth was, I could have left the liver, but my liver-loving grandparents were in town, having driven all the way from California in a once-in-a-lifetime summer expedition to Alaska, towing a 1970s camper with a deep freezer strapped to a makeshift rack jutting from the rear. My dad always made me eat the liver. My dad bitched through blood-pinched cigarette dripping ashes into the meat. He hated liver, and therefore something in me wanted to like it. "Let's go." Sasha hit me with a "who the hell are you" glance, and in that moment seemed unbefitting of the blood paint on her cheeks. That paint was our father's blessing to his favorite little warrior. I leaned into the hill, saved to be done with this sorry safari. The hot mass slumped wet on my hips. Each sway cut the thin straps into my knob-knuckle shoulders. "Hey, Jess, wait up!" Drag-throated smoke and surprise reported from my father's enormous head. I found myself wondering how a man with a Charlie Brown-sized head that requires string extensions to fit a ball cap could be so slow on the uptake to appreciate a setting sun. I wasn't 100 feet up when the mountain shadow painted our ridge. It was still 1,000 feet up just to make the ridge, then all the way down under thick cover where our white Ford van, dubbed the Marshmallow for its toasted rusty edges and blowing campfire smoke, awaited. If you've never kicked stairs into a wet, cold hillside, it's a character-building ordeal. The body is held upright, balancing on the hips. Then the haunches are tucked deep underneath, one at a time, with a sharp kick from behind. Going like this, I drove the toes in collision with the hard rubber garage sale boots, piercing roots for a short-term hold in deep grizzly grass that bent Sasha's worst nightmares. As we gained on the hill, I clawed wrapping rings around my fingers. I was reminded of the hair-pulling, wedgie-waging mockery of a friendship my sisters had with me, and there found myself amused and vindicated as Rambo's ghost whimpered at my heels. I sent without permission or compassion for smoke breaks, backpack wobbling like a blood-filled sack of a tick rooting its way up the flank of a great ancient dog, curved nose to tail, in a deep, forgotten sleep. Complete dark waited the ridge to tuck us in to a slow, winding descent. Our flashlight was one of those yellow and black plastic jobs. A crap flashlight is worse than nothing, as the eyes never adjust and the light never truly guides. I went ahead and stayed ahead, backlit by bouncy light, shaken and smacked awake every 9 seconds or so. The last 100 feet to the road was a crumbling cake of rock, left from the road blasting crew. They were taming the north, one highway at a time. Satisfaction found me in the ditch, smiling at the shrine of a moonlit white puff on wheels. I rode quiet as my old man pitched the extrication plan. Call neighbors and friends, return early with lots of help, split the meat. Better to share it than lose it. This we could all agree on. This wasn't my hunt, it wasn't my moose, but I was beginning to feel like it was my responsibility. I also felt a warm satisfaction in my chest. My tackling that hill was not the Jesse of yesteryear. It was a vivid transaction of escalating value that smelled like sweat and felt like fire. I was becoming powerful and taking my place among the competition of love's embrace. The dark driveway, lit by propane camper lights and a waft of cheap beer, told all my grandpa was still awake. Maybe it was because he was a boxer that Grandpa's right hand was always in a curl, or maybe the cool can shaped it to a perfectly formed hams holder. I don't know, but Grandpa was a drunk and a dangerous one. Sometime between breakfast and pissing his pants, he could talk fairly straight through a sideways mouth. He never laid a hand on me the way he had my dad, but he scorned me through the proxy dislike of my tender mother. I went to bed as greedy as Gargamel to smurf my ass up that hill in the morning and show them all what I was made of. Classic comedy was the disorganized morning to follow. In the smoke-filled bathroom, holding my breath to pee, I listened to rustling rage. In the garage, where saws and packs and ropes were tossed in a stack. Old sheets were our game bags. Not those sheets, Artie, nagged my mother. I emerged to my grandmother, rolling her eyes at the precious tantrum. Grandpa shuffle-stepped to the camper for a breakfast beer, trailing on in a side-mouth kind of anger song. Ring, 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 ring. His shit talk sounded like a cranking Chevy 350 with no spark. By the time Kelly, our neighbor, showed up, it was mid-morning. I jumped in his red Suburban, and we all ended up at the pullout just before noon. I decided to chance the wait and bring my rifle. I had just bought it, paid for by doing odd jobs for the local gunsmith that spring and my boat washing job. The fine Remington Model 721 30-06 rattled against my aluminum pack frame, so I carried it in hand. By the time we hit the ridge, I was barking at my dad for the undisciplined sweep of his muzzle, and he didn't like that. The rules I wanted to employ were simple. If you're up front, keep your muzzle forward. If you're in the rear, keep your muzzle backwards. In the middle, muzzle up, not to the side, for invariably you will turn around a bush or a tree and aim at your son. Come on, Charlie Brown, we can do this better. It's confusing, to say the least, for a child to be in charge, or indeed wonder if that is the case. In order to aim up, we must look up. The meat was just fine, and had gotten cool in the night. No flies yet, being chilly in the shade. We wrapped and tied the meat to pack frames. Then it got real. That coming winter, I would wrestle the 95-pound weight class. A hind quarter on a mid-sized bull weighs about 185, and a shoulder is about 120. I stared at the pack tilted on its side, shoulder lashed to frame. I took a knee and retied my shoes, double-knotted the wet laces, and tugged the water out. I'd done some packing, but this was next level. I laid down and rolled my shoulders into the straps. Help me up. Biting off a little more than you can chew there, aren't you? Kelly quipped. Kelly was a truck driver like my dad. He looked like Magnum P.I.'s goofy cousin and had nothing cool to say, ever, yet laughed powerfully at his own shoddy charades of wit. I liked Kelly and his constant campaign for levity. I wanted to try. Well, let's get you up, Pop Kelly. They lifted the pack and tugged the strap tails until the wide foam flats hit the buckle-ending adjustment. The pack tilted to the left, and I was on one foot. The meat was tied badly and swung around. They snatched me before I went down, then pushing the still slack straps together at my sternum, fixed them with my dad's favorite tool, silver duct tape. Round and round their hands tugged, passed, and pulled, and layered the tape over my heart to form an X of the straps, and this time when they let go, I sent up a hand to lock the top of my pack to my shoulders. My old man stood with doubtful curiosity in his wide face. This is a way bigger load than last night. How's it feel? I got it. Hoping to hell I did, indeed. I wasted no time and tottered to the hillside. Soft voices, muffled by grunting careful tones, gave prelude to an air of see how far he can get discussion among them. The meat pressed hard against my head, facing me down to walk in stabs. It was just as well. The next hours would be on my knees. Aside from the occasional face-planting error of leaning forward, I was doing all right. And the sheet-wrapped bone-flesh package stepped up, 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 the broken escalator of a mountain. Never let go of the grass. Not ever. Kelly and I were up front, and his yammering this time was in my praise of effort. That felt good, and when we hit the ridge, I took a knee and fell aside like a fat cat settling into the grass, still taped to the frame. Kelly dumped his pack, and 20 minutes later, some others caught up on the ridge. They began stacking the meat and unlashing. It had been decided that Kelly and I would continue, and the rest would get the meat up the hill. It was ribs, neck, and all the rest. Then they would meet us at the trucks. 2 guys picked me up by the pack like a contraption and let me set my feet. I tilted forward and chop-stepped for the downslope of standing trees. By the time Kelly and I got to the truck, I heard that at least 100 reasons he would not be going back up the hill. For a guy who had cleared the calendar for free meat, he was booking up fast. Along the way, I found a clever trick where if I wanted a break, I would find a side tree, where a branch stub was jutting out. Then, carefully, I would approach it with the top metal hoop to snag the branch and hang the pack for a dangle rest. This was preferable to the crunch of a no-tree go-down. We waited 20 minutes again at the truck. I'd had enough of Kelly and his ailing agency. Something about his struggle had emboldened me. And I decided to up the ante, hitting the hill with an empty pack frame. No one, including me, figured I would make another trip, but the burden was heavy and the workers were few. Maybe, just maybe, I had more to give and more to get. Kelly somewhat reluctantly called out that he would follow, which I am told he did, but I never saw him, as he tried some alternate route. Maybe he was a secret genius and found a better way, or maybe he wanted to hide. All I knew was the meat was headed for the ridge, and so there I would be. Emboldened by audacity, I ran for the ridge, with a feather frame on my back and rifle in palm. There's something about the end of suffering that feels like the beginning of bliss. And though I knew more suffering was to be had, so was there bliss to seek in the after. I met Sasha and Dad atop the ridge and was met with a, "What's wrong?" "Nothing. I came up for another load." My sister and Dad exchanged surprised looks through long, weary faces over the ridge-stacked meat pile. Sucking in to burn the last drag of his filterless favorite Camel Straight, Dad spoke through smoke with the creaking of a wooden puppet. Well, shoot. Let's get a hindquarter and some ribs out of here, and we'll leave the rest. Exhaling great gray steam of dissolving resolution. My back is killing me, Sasha mourned. I said little and poked a flat bologna and Wonder Bread sandwich down my neck, sharing a can of Coke with Sasha before going all in. Load me up with that hindquarter. I turned my back for saddling. How will they like me now? I was beginning to believe in the impossibly powerful manifestation of focused grit. There was a banter and warnings from them, but I was deaf to it. For the first time, I witnessed Rambo's struggle against feeling admiration for her seemingly inferior sibling. Standing up with that pack and the last of the duct tape holding me to it, I stepped off under a great white and red sign that bled, Jesse means business. Sasha became my kickstand, and we headed for the truck. Dry spaghetti legs threatened to snap at the flick of a fly on the thigh. Or maybe they would implode like great accordion buildings demolished and toppling directly into the earth. Or the sinew of the arches, hidden screaming in my boots, would tear free of the toes and turn my feet to flaps. That is, if I was not driven into the earth like a fence post, hammered by steps. God forbid one single root snagged a toe. Could I even get up again? It was a tree-to-tree struggle. The hill was steep, and the friction on my feet made them hot, stripping and stretching my soles. The trees were pinball stoppers, sending me chatter, chatter, ping, ping down the mountain. I was halfway down the ridge when my grandfather stumbled across the trail. He was wearing a blue t-shirt, blue jeans, and had not yet wet himself. The day was young. When he saw me, the side of his mouth cracked open, and that familiar cranking began. You doggone it, Artie, that's my boy, doggone it. Tilting the long, empty Hams can back for a lingering drip. I was delighted. That old guy everyone was scared of thought I was doing good. I unscrewed my anguish and attempted to saunter down the trail, easy as you please-ish. And I got by him. Legs don't fail me now. The crumbly hill was downright scary, and my tiny feet dug furrows as I post-hole trenched the ditch. I felt like a barn door sounds when I tipped back into the van and tore at the tape. My dad began to strut around. I think I blew some of his balding hair off with my effort, and I loved it. I was drinking it in, thirsty for water and praise. The sting in my eyes from forehead of crusty crystal favored my pride as I sat trembling and groaning in bliss of release now familiar. There were 2 more loads on the ridge, and it was getting late. Toward the end of a beautiful Bluebird day, one more rotation of time's pricking spindle was near. The discussion had been planted early and slowly accepted by the dwindling group. It was over. We were going home. There was a couple £100 of hard-earned dinners on the ridge. The price of dodging ricochets sang a salty tune of unfinished business in my skull. I drained my water, picked up my gear, yeepaw, ondulé, and limped at the hill. Half-hearted offers of help failed to launch, and in just under 2 hours I was back at the truck. Dad was there, and Kelly had returned. They sat in morbid curiosity as I emerged in the evening dusk, full load, no rifle. No way. My father's disbelief again redefined. He looked at me like a stranger of vague familiarity, as if to say, "Do I know you?" "Good night. How many trips is that?" Kelly plucked. "3 today. Geez, Jess, I didn't know you had it in you." "Hop in. Let's go home." Dad stamped a burned pinch of white paper underfoot. "I have to go back." "No, just leave it," he insisted. "I'm going back. I insisted. His heavy head bobbed, cocked, and twisted like a cat to a moth. He was freeze-framed in the open door, hand on wheel. I knew this conversation would be coming with my dad, but also with myself. And not being convinced yet of what could be possible, I laid the bait for my own curious trap. You did what? My dad's face sagged in conflict under cast of the yellow dome light. His speechless bottom lip dangled a fresh cancer stick, unlit. There was a moon over that mountain. My aching legs and arches swiftly bent on for the last pack in my prized Remington. Alone in the dark, I emerged on a cool, breezy ridge with careful, quiet feet. I was energized by apprehension of what may lay in wait between me and my rifle. My sister's phantom grisly fears found me fretting behind a cheap, failing flashlight. One singular, would-be abandoned sack of meat and bone, lashed to a green surplus wooden pack frame and topped with gleaming steel, lay in the still yellow beam like a vampire's birthday cake. Chills whistled up my neck, and my newfound manhood gave way to fear, casting a spook over rustling leaves. I lunged, swept up my rifle, and brought it to bear at the brush. Nothing. I'm wasting time. Dropping and rolling into the steps, I crawled on all fours, eyeballs reeling at the night. I made my way for a dark depression where I could tip to my feet and stand with a rifle crutch thrust. By the time I was up and moving, ghosts, grizzlies, and ghouls were scratching the tender calves of my mind. I made a toilsome, slow escape to the ridgeline, having been somewhat consoled by the rifle. I rationalized also that likely a hungry attacking bear would mistake moose meat for my meat and fill his gut on my freight as I fled. Maybe that would be preferable. No, certainly not. Just keep going. And so discussing such ridiculous banter with myself, I smuggled over the ridge, with pride's tall feathers stabbed in my cap, getting taller with every step. If we had crickets in Alaska, I would have heard them at the truck. Kelly turned to me with, "You just been bar mitzvahed, bud." I looked that up later and had to agree. I had been. Hopping in the back, resting on the pack meat, in bliss of relief, I felt the puff of the marshmallow's squashy suspension groan and roll. Nodding off, I soared over the ridge on wings of blue, outstretched and glorious. The clouds peeled back, opening a great warming window above. Struggles of the legged ones look so small from up here. I remember what it was like, looking up, while being looked over. No more. Ha ha. No more. Ah, there's our house. Was it ever my place? I'll drop down for a look. The door is open at my mother's hand. I'll soar in, right over her head, with a cheeky flap, and land right at the kitchen table. Would there now be a place set for me? I fancied the thought, folded my feathers, and dove for the door. Thank you for listening to my story. I'm really enjoying writing. I've had the opportunity to live a pretty interesting life, and I'm glad to share it. So, thank you.